Welcome into Sportsmemo's betting podcast for August 12th. It's the NFL opening line report with Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, great to be here, Drew.
Great to have you, man. We're breaking down all of the NFL games, going over, well, I'll let Teddy explain it to you, but do want to throw out the coupon code for the podcast. You get Teddy's 7-day all-access pass. It is TC49, the coupon code that brings down the price to just $49. So for less than $50, you'll get the next 7 days all access. You'll get his NFLX and his MLB. He's throwing it out there. Teddy, we're talking Philadelphia, Jacksonville up first, 38 down to 36.5. It looks like the total -3 on the Jags. Throw it over to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a good opening weekend in NFLX action where we hit, I played 6, which is a lot for me for week 1, but I really thought there was some good info, and it turned out there was some good info. We cashed 4 out of the 6, including the 4%er and the 5% big ticket, both of which were right side. So those are nice to cash. So a nice 67% start to the preseason. The goal of this podcast, we're going to do the same thing every Monday between now and the Super Bowl, called the OLR, Opening Line Report. We're going to go through every game in the NFL, where the lines opened and what direction we think they're going to move. So the goal is, do we want to bet this now? Do we want to wait? And that's the info that I'm trying to get you every week, first thing on Monday. That being said, for the preseason, you don't always have a great idea about where the markets are going to move because the coaches haven't given out their game plans yet. So what I'll do for today is talk about the few lines that have already moved and why. For the rest of the games, we'll talk about what happened week 1 and what might be different in week 2. And what happened in week 1 for Jacksonville is this is a team that gained 2.1 yards per play against the Baltimore Ravens. They were shut out in a preseason game. And you know, it's preseason. You don't want to overstate it, but you don't want to understate it either. Teams, the trends show teams off a shutout loss in August tend to be good bets when you look at those type of stats. But of course, you don't have the QB rotations for Jacksonville this week. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be betting. I'm not going to be betting Gardner Minshew against a team that's blitzing. Minshew was pretty rough in the opener against Baltimore's blitz. And Philadelphia, who, I mean, they showed a lot of don't care in game 1. Clients and I were able to cash a nice ticket on Tennessee betting against the Eagles. I'm not convinced that's going to be the case for week 2. So we'll see we'll see what the quotes come out of Philadelphia in the next day or two. But I wouldn't be surprised if, A, the Eagles play better this week, and B, is they come with a little bit more, which means that this 3 may not hold. But from a spot standpoint, again, the trends are going to show that teams off a shutout loss in the preseason returning home tend to be good bets. I'm not anticipating a huge line move on this one based on those particular circumstances.
Yeah, I like that returning home being good bets. I could see that. We got next game up 7:30 Eastern kick here. New York Jets at the Atlanta Falcons. Looks like 44 being the total. -1 or -1.5 on the Falcons, Teddy. And I'll tell you with the Falcons, one thing I noticed, I watched their pretty much full game against the Dolphins. Talent on the first string, you know, we know the Matt Ryans, Julio Joneses, etc. It tends to drop off there towards the end. I don't know what your read was, but throw it over to you for the Jets and the Falcons.
Well, my read was that it was a 27-27 game in the fourth quarter. Atlanta had the ball, inside their own 20?
Yeah.
And Dan Quinn said, let's go for it on fourth down. That's all you need to know about the Falcons. Okay? And they're laying here. The markets, I don't think they're necessarily going to accept Atlanta as a favorite. Quinn is now 0-12 ATS his last 12 preseason games. He clearly doesn't care about winning or losing. And I mean, the Jets, one of the bets I lost was on the Jets against the Giants. They blitzed. They blitzed the whole game. Giants just made plays, man. And Williams didn't go nuts. I thought Williams might blitz more in that contest, and it wasn't ridiculous what the Jets did. And then, the Giants picked them apart. Jets also with some cluster injuries in the secondary right now that could be a concern against Atlanta's passing game.
Yeah, I like what you said there about the Falcons and Dan Quinn not really caring. I'm with you 100% on that, Teddy. We got Cincinnati, Washington up next, 41.5 being the total, seeing 3.5 or 3 Washington laying at home.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals look pretty bad. I mean, that was a rough showing over the weekend, to put it mildly. against KC. And look, I know it's KC. And I know they came out throwing, but Cincy had nothing. Dalton came out and had a decent first drive. But that was about the end of it for the Bengals. It feels like a team that's going to have their fair share of growing pains. That being said, I had a big ticket against the Redskins this week. I was stunned at how much money they took. And, of course, the money poured back in on Cleveland on game day, as it should have. Dwayne Haskins was going the whole way for Washington, and Haskins looked like a rookie QB getting his first NFL action. He was a little bit rough. I would expect he's going to get ample playing time in this game, too, which will probably make me a little reluctant to lay more than a field goal with the Redskins. Let's see what the QB rotation is for Washington.
All right, Teddy, we got Green Bay, Baltimore up next. Looks like the Ravens laying 3.5. Heritage actually just moved to 4 as we're talking. Some opinion on this total, Teddy. 38.5 at some shots, seen it as high as 40. What are you thinking here, Packers and Ravens?
Yeah, I'm seeing Caesars at 4 right now. I'm seeing Coast at 4 right now. William Hill's moving to 4. Jazz at 4.5. So clearly the money's coming in on Baltimore. And, the Ravens are a bandwagon team right now for the preseason. Harbaugh does care, and most importantly, they blitz. Again, the Jags had 2.1 yards per play against them in the opener. So the markets respect a coach who has shown interest in winning, and they certainly respect the team that blitzes in August. The teams that blitz in August tend to win. The Packers first, the Packers look pretty good. The second half got ugly, and they gave up 2 late touchdowns to get a backdoor push for Houston in that ball game. But let's see how much Green Bay starters play. Their first stringers and second stringers were the better of the 2 units when they played the Texans last week.
Talking with Teddy Covers at Teddy_covers on Twitter. 178, 128, 58% over the last 4 years in the NFL alone. Those are some heavy hitter numbers. Also 62% last year, 39 and 24 NFL full season for 2018. Guys, the coupon code for the podcast is TC49 at checkout for the next 7 days. All access service on sportsmemo.com for just $49. That's a huge discount. TC49 at checkout. Last game here for Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific kick, Teddy. We got Oakland at Arizona. Looks like the Cardinals taking some money, up to 3.5 home favorites here. Total pretty much at 40.
All right, so I watch preseason. It's what I do. I sit around, the games I watch stuff live, I watch replays. I spent half the day yesterday watching replays that I taped on NFL Network. It's what I do because the markets, again, they look at box score numbers and they look at a final score. Arizona, and I cashed a ticket with Arizona. They were awful. Oh, my God, they were awful against the Chargers. The Chargers' first string crushed Arizona. I mean, crushed the first 2 drives for both teams. It was like Arizona did nothing and Chargers did whatever they want. And Arizona was lucky to be only down 7-0 after that spot. In the second half, they showed a will to win. And they wanted to win. It feels like Kingsbury was going for the win. They played to win, at home. It mattered for a team that was awful last year.
Uh-huh.
Now we're talking about laying 3.5. It's... the box score numbers show that Arizona was fine. Arizona was not fine. Okay? They won, but they were pretty rough. And again, Kingsbury, what he said last week, I'm not showing anything in preseason. They tried to play with a little bit of pace. The pace didn't really work out that well. And I know Oakland, the Raiders are going to have their fair share of growing pains too. We certainly saw that in their preseason debut. And again, they beat the Rams. We'll talk about the Rams in a minute. Got the winning cover in that ball game. But, when we talk about Glennon and Peterman, that's a bet-on combo for backup QBs. I don't know if this line holds 3.5. I really don't. And yet the money's, the initial money showing for Arizona, not my money.
I love that breakdown, especially you had the bet and then realized they kind of overperformed, Teddy. I love that kind of handicap. So, yeah, great information there on the Cardinals going forward. We got Friday's slate, 7 p.m. Eastern kick. Buffalo at Carolina. Looks like total about 40. -3 I'm seeing across the board. That's the Panthers laying at home.
Yeah, single biggest surprise for me from week 1 was the Bills' win over the Colts. And there were 2 factors in that. One was that Buffalo's offensive line was shredded with injuries, and yet they came out and they were able to move the football, no problem. And secondly, was that the Bills' defense gave Indy fits, and that might be a pretty darn good defense. So it's worth noting there for Buffalo. My read on Buffalo in Week 1 was dead wrong. It was the wrongest read that I had. So they'll be a team that I'm not going to get involved with here. The Panthers went over the Bears, and we'll get to Chicago in a minute. But the quotes I'm seeing from Matt Nagy right now are pure bet against quotes from the Bears. I don't think Nagy cares one iota. Oh, I'm talking about Buffalo, Carolina. Sorry, I got all confused there. I started talking about Nagy was talking about the Giants and the Panthers. But the point is, Nagy doesn't care. Carolina's win needs to be taken with a grain of salt, and we might see a whole lot of Will Grier again in this ballgame. I like Grier's future. I don't like the rookie QB against a good defense laying points at home in the second half.
Teddy, we got Chicago at the New York Giants up next. Seeing Pick'em or Giants -1, as high as -1.5 is what I'm seeing. 41-42 being the total. What are you thinking for Bears and Giants?
Yeah, Nagy doesn't care. That's what I was trying to say. With the Panthers' win over Chicago, I discounted that a little bit because the Bears really don't care. Now, it was all Chase Daniel and Tyler Bray last week. I would assume that we'll see some Trubisky in the first-string offense from Chicago this week, and that in theory is a good QB combination when you talk about backups. But boy, they were under a lot of pressure last week. The offensive line, the offensive line did not look good in the second half of that ball game. And I'll give the Giants credit. I was certainly surprised at how well all three quarterbacks played for the Giants in a game where they were facing pressure on just about every down. I mean, we saw Tanny played well. We saw Lauletta play well. And, of course, Daniel Jones, that first drive, facing a blitz on every pass. He was hitting receivers, and his receivers were making plays. So the Giants, who came in, and then all the quotes at a Giants camp were negative, and everyone's like, the Jets look like a decent team, and the Giants look like a very young team. That was not the case in the preseason opener, and I would expect to see the money come against Chicago this week. So if you like the Giants, I bet them sooner rather than later. This line more likely to go up than it is to go down. Well, and also note, I'm not really talking a lot about totals. You can't bet totals without knowing QB rotations. So in terms of where the initial moves are, I really haven't put that much emphasis on the total moves yet. We could talk about that later in the week.
Good stuff, Teddy. We got Miami, Tampa Bay, battle for Florida here up next. Third game of 3 on Friday night. Seeing what the Bucs about -3.5 pretty much across the board, and total about 43.
Yeah, and at first glance, you're like, why is Tampa laying 3.5? Miami's got a QB battle, and Miami was able to move the football in Week 1 against Atlanta, although a lot of that was in the second half in garbage time, most notably, Josh Rosen's, big numbers in that ball game, which, you take them with something of a grain of salt. But Tampa, worth noting from, and this is, of all the teams, not for all the teams, this is definitely one that stood out to me from Week 1. I know they lost against Pittsburgh, and I know they trailed in that ball game throughout and got a couple of late touchdowns to make things interesting. But it is definitely worth noting 57 pass attempts for the Bucs, +1 scramble, +4 sacks. That makes 62 compared to only 22 running plays. That's nearly a 3-to-1 ratio from Bruce Arians in the preseason. And the teams that throw the football in August and throw it all over the field, they tend to be good bets. So that certainly at least a part of the reason why at first glance this line looked a little bit too high. And then you're like, maybe not so much. And note the total for this ball game. I just said we're not talking about totals a whole lot. This is one of the highest ones on the board, with the early money pouring in on the over, 41.5. Heck, I'm seeing 44s right now. That's a 2.5-point total move just in the last couple hours.
Yeah, Teddy, actually, Bookmaker just moved up to 44 as we were talking about it. So, market's right there with you, betting towards the over. Do want to ask you a quick question on the Dolphins. I watched that full game. I'll throw out there, after Rosen came out, I felt like there was a big drop-off in quarterback talent. That was something that might be a tidbit to use betting forward in the preseason. And I also want to get your opinion. Did you think anything of the what Kenny Stills and the owner of the Miami Dolphins about the whole Trump and political debate? Did you see that?
No, I mean, yeah, of course I saw it. You can't miss headlines these days. But in terms of what it means, I don't think it means anything. Players are going to have political views. You got political views. I got political views. Some people share them. Some people don't. I don't think it's going to affect anything on the field for the Miami Dolphins. When you talk about a QB drop-off, I mean, Ruddock is never going to be an NFL starting quarterback. And Josh Rosen, was a first-round draft choice last year. So I'm not surprised there was a significant QB drop-off, even though, the Rosen-Fitzpatrick battle, that's going to be a battle. I don't expect that to be decided anytime soon.
Teddy, we got a bunch of games on Saturday. The first one starting off in the daytime, 4 p.m. Eastern. Cleveland, Indianapolis Colts. Seeing Pick'em -1, -2, maybe -3 even. So some opinion on this one. 43 the total.
And there's one thing I have to go back to the very first game that we just for now. It was Philly-Jacksonville, okay, where it was like Nick Foles against his former team. Yeah, that'll be the first quarter. The point spread outcome will not be decided in the first quarter. So, yeah, you can have the hype, and you'll see, so-and-so's in revenge no one's in revenge in a preseason game, okay? It's just doesn't work that way. Cleveland and Indy. Indy was a major disappointment week one. I thought Brissett, who was a decent QB for Indy in recent years and a good backup and a guy who we trust in the preseason, he had a really rough game. And some of that was Buffalo's defense. Some of that they just never got that first down to get clicking and get going. And the market's certainly expecting less of that from Indy this week. Andrew Luck's not going to go, I don't think. And from all indications, this Luck injury appears to be lingering, and it's a big concern now for Indy, and it's a big concern for season wins, and it's a big concern for week one, and all of that. But there's also some anti-Brown. We saw a lot of anti-Browns money last week, initially, and then it came back on game day. We're seeing that same anti-Browns money this week. This has been a significant line move this morning. Opened at Pick'em in a lot of places. Now I'm seeing threes popping up on the Colts.
Teddy, we got the New England Patriots, Tennessee Titans up next. Pats laying 3 on the road, total of 40.
Yeah, and, New England looked pretty good in the opener, though some of that's Detroit. Matt Patricia has shown nothing in the preseason. But again, it's Belichick against one of his former assistants, and Belichick tends to get the best of those. There were a lot of reports in New England about how the QB play behind Brady was really rough in practice, and then what happened? They had no problems with the QB play in Detroit week one. Clients and I cashed with Tennessee last week. I thought they were a good bet as a dog in Philly. I wouldn't be surprised they end up being a good bet here against New England. But, money poured against the Patriots last week. Now here, the sharpest book saying, we like New England this week. A little bit of extra juice towards the Patriots, a penny right now. Just one example.
We got the 7:30 kickoff, Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers, seeing Pick'em, 44.5 the total.
Yeah, I don't see, this was a legitimately bad line. Opened as high as 4. Rams 4-point favorites. In Hawaii, 3 was a prevailing number. Now it's Pick'em. Shoot, I'm seeing Dallas -1 in some spots. The coaches that don't care, you can't back them, you can't bet on them, and you certainly can't bet them in a Pick'em price range. And Sean McVay does not care. The Rams do not care one iota about the preseason. Every quote is, we don't care, we don't care, we don't care. Then you look in the situational factor for L.A., okay? They only had a 7-day training camp. Then they broke camp, and they went up to Napa and did joint practices, and they went to Oakland. They come back to L.A. real quick, and now they're flying out to Hawaii. This team has major travel issues. Look at what they're doing over the next month. They'll be flying like 30,000 miles. They won't be home at all. So you have a team that doesn't care going to Hawaii, and they opened as 4-point favorites in some spots. I'm not surprised at all. That has been nothing but Dallas money, even though the Cowboys continued their long and storied track record of futility in August in the Jason Garrett era. Another rough second half, really rough fourth quarter against the Niners cost their backers a bunch on Saturday.
Teddy, I think we skipped the Detroit-Houston game.
All right, well.
Are you seeing that
no,
as
because
well?
we haven't done Kansas City-Pittsburgh either.
Okay, I think, we'll backtrack a little bit here. Did Detroit Lions at the Houston...
What do you mean backtracking? We're going in rotation order like we always do. After Dallas, L.A. comes Kansas City, Pittsburgh, then Detroit, Houston. No backtrack.
Man, some of these, it's tough because sometimes you go by the time, sometimes the rotation. You're absolutely right. Kansas City, Pittsburgh. We'll do that next. Pick 'em 46 the total.
Yeah, and be aware. We'll do it the exact same way every week, all football season. We'll go in rotation order, all 16 games, right in a row. So if you're looking for a game, you'll know where to find it when you skip ahead and all of that stuff. But that's the way we make it rotation order. Because that makes it the same for everyone, makes it really easy to track. And this is a betting show, so the rotation numbers matter. When it comes to KC and Pittsburgh, Chiefs look pretty good in that opener, man. Patrick Mahomes, all season didn't hurt him. And that's a scary, scary looking offense. The question is, does Andy Reid care this week? We don't know. We'll have to find out. And when it comes to Mike Tomlin, of all the coaches that I hate betting on, Belichick's one that I don't get involved with very often. Tomlin's another, because my history with Tomlin is he'll say one thing and do something else and say, I changed my mind in the third quarter. Those frustrate me. That being said, the Steelers certainly have the bet on QB rotation. They were the better team against Tampa, even though the Bucs put up a bunch of yards late in that ball game. But talking about Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs, I don't know how much Hodges we see this week, but Rudolph and Dobbs, that's a good 1-2 for backup QBs. Don't know if we're going to see Big Ben this week or not.
All right, Teddy, we do got the Detroit-Houston up next. 42.5 the total, seeing -3.5 to -4.5, depending on where you're shopping. That's Houston laying at home.
Well, we've got Vrabel now. We got
No, if you need to get it, man, it's all right.
No. I hit ignore it. But why am I? Sorry. Okay, let me get my notes right here. Lions. Boy, that was a distraction. Patricia. Why am I talking the Vrabel? I'm like the one, the one former Patriots assistant versus the other. Patricia in Detroit has now played 5 preseason games. The Lions have lost and failed to cover 4 of them. The one that they did cover at Tampa in week 3 last year, I remember the game. It certainly wasn't a right side. Let's just put it that way. So there's a fair bit of I don't care from Patricia. There's a fair bit of that from Bill O'Brien as well. Although I'll say this, the Texans coming through the back door to get that push against Green Bay. And I don't know who Houston's playing at QB this week. It was all Joe Webb, literally all Joe Webb last week for 4 quarters. And Webb struggled against the first stringers. He struggled against the second stringers. He struggled against the third stringers. The fourth stringers he moved the football against. And again, you look at the box score, you say, Joe Webb, 25, 40, 286, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 2 sacks. Wasn't that bad. 6 rushes, 47 yards, 7.8 yards per carry. You say, Webb was pretty good. No, he wasn't. Okay. The only time he was good was in the fourth quarter against defenders that aren't going to make the team. Let's see who Houston has for their QB rotation this week. If it's Joe Webb, I'm not laying 3.5, 4.5 points with him, regardless of Detroit's track record.
Guys, this is the NFL opening line report. We'll be here every Wednesday throughout football season.
What day of the week?
On Mondays, Teddy.
Every Wednesday?
Did I say Wednesday?
You did, man. We're having a rough time right now. We better finish this up.
Jeez, man, we're all over the place on this pod. We promise it will get better. We're just getting back in the rhythm here off of baseball season. But we got 3 games left, Teddy. New Orleans, LA Chargers, 44.5, -3, the Chargers in San Diego.
Yeah, I cashed a bet against the Saints this week. I knew the Vikings cared, and they played like they cared. The Saints played like they cared, too, which concerned me a little bit. They would chuck the football around, and every time Minnesota would score, New Orleans would come right back. So they showed, I'd say, more fight than they usually show maybe in August. They're not a team that, Peyton's not a guy that's really worried about wins and losses at this time of the year. But, the passing game worked against a pretty good defense. Bridgewater was spot on for New Orleans. But, again, when it comes to wins and losses, when it comes to fourth quarter, I'm not sure that, Taysom Hill was okay, again, but he's not going to light up opposing defenses. The Chargers, boy, those first stringers, like I said earlier, they dominated Arizona, and the rest of the game they didn't care and made a bunch of mistakes, and they looked like that. And I'm not convinced they're a team that cares a whole lot about winning this time of year either. So, 3 is the opening number. The little bit of LA money coming in right now. I don't think it goes to 3.5. It could go to 3.5, but at 3.5, I do think we'll see some buyback on the Saints.
We got the Sunday night game, then the Monday night game to conclude it. Seattle, Minnesota up Sunday night, 42 the total, Teddy. Minnesota Vikings laying 3.5 or 4 at home.
Yeah, I mean, Zimmer cares. The point spread track record shows it. He's been a consistent money winner in August. But this is a point spread that's not just, you can't just be covering numbers. Now you got to win by margin in that ballgame, and that's definitely a concern for me. And look, Pete Carroll had a great track record in August, and then in 2018, all of a sudden, Seattle didn't have a backup quarterback the way they did, and they went 0-4 straight up and 0-4 against the spread in August. And then we saw the Seahawks. I mean, how much money came in against them? That was like a 5-point line move in favor of Denver in Week 1 this year. And what did Seattle do? Lo and behold, we're not going to say they dominated the game, but they dominated the second half, which is what Carroll has done in years past with the Seahawks. Paxton Lynch played well, but on the other hand, if you're getting Geno Smith against Minnesota's defense, even if he's only in for a quarter, what do you say, over, under, 1.5 turnovers? Smith was rough again for Seattle in his debut with the Seahawks last week.
Guys, the coupon code for the podcast is TC49. It gives you Teddy Covers 7-day all access for just $49. Huge discount there on sportsmemo.com. We'll give you his preseason, his MLB selections for the next 7 days. 7 days after you buy it. TC49 at checkout. He's 58% the last 4 years, 62% last year. And also, guys, don't forget about his NFL season win total report since 2001. 71%. That's 87 selections correct and only 35 wrong. So don't forget about his NFL season over-under win report. We got Monday night's action to finish it off, Teddy. 8 p.m. Eastern kick, 5 p.m. Pacific. San Francisco at Denver, seeing 42.5 the total. Minus 2-ish range. That's Denver laying a mile high.
Yeah, and the 49ers with the Beathard and Mullins as a combo, that's exactly what you want in the preseason. You want a backup QB battle, and B, a backup QB battle between guys that have started NFL games before, and that's exactly what San Fran has. So I'm not surprised the very first bets have come on the 49ers in this ballgame. Drew Lock with a big game against Seattle. In terms of overall numbers, but again, you look at the box score, it doesn't tell you the story. Lock 17 to 28, 180 yards and a touchdown with 1 pick. Solid numbers, but when it comes to actually leading the team down the field into the end zone, well, not so much from Drew Lock in that regard, similar to what we saw in Week 1. So Denver in their third preseason game, we may get the starters a little bit longer here for the Broncos than for San Fran. That's definitely worth noting and paying attention to when the coaches' quotes start coming out in the next day or two. But on the other hand, 49ers have that QB rotation that makes them somewhat attractive as an underdog, even in hostile road environments.
All right, Teddy, we made it through. We stumbled our way through, but overall,
that wasn't too bad.
No, not too bad. It just early season mistakes. We gotta get them out in practice. So next Monday we'll be back, same time, same place, guys. NFL opening line report every Monday, Teddy, throughout football season. Anything else you want to throw out, man, before we shut this down?
No, man, it's all good. I appreciate you guys listening. And again, if you like this type of info, we'll be doing it every single Monday right here at sportsmemo.com all football season long.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets.